Hey, this is Dr. Glenn Livingston with BecomeARealCoach.com, and I'm here with Mecca Campbell of Mecca's Take, which is a very interesting, inspirational podcast that I happened to come across in the course of talking to Mecca about the possibility of becoming a coach. Mecca, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing terrific today. I was very interested in doing this interview with you because, besides the fact that you have a very pleasant voice, it struck me that I speak with so many coaches to be. I describe them as people with so much love and experience in their heart, and they're just looking for a way to share it with the world and spare others from going through some of the pains and tribulations that they went through. Of course, we're in the business of training and certifying people, and part of the nature of that is people are thinking, well, I'm going to start sharing and sparing after I get certified. And of course, we want to help you get certified, and we can teach you a lot of very valuable ways to further your mission by doing that. But the truth is, you don't have to wait. You can be out there inspiring others today. And I think, Mecca, you are a textbook example of someone who said, I'm not going to wait. I've got love and inspiration and experience to share, and I'm going to get out there and do something about it. Could you tell me a story about your internet radio show, the podcast Mecca's Take? Could you tell me a little bit about how that came to be?
Miss Mecca's Take came to be basically just because I was grateful to have a platform to be able to share with people. Usually I would get caught up on the phone with friends and family members who appreciate me having a very positive and optimistic perspective on the things that a lot of people experience on a day-to-day basis or at different time points in their life. So when I had this opportunity to share via internet and online at my own discretion and choose my own hours, I went for it, and I really enjoyed doing it. So it's been a rewarding experience on both ends. Not necessarily, as far as making me rich, but it has most definitely enriched the lives of others, and I think with that, it's helped us all in one way or another.
Probably have a lot of stories inside of you from some of the people that you've talked to in those shows, yes?
Yeah, I do. I usually don't get a lot of call-in. People know that it'll run for 2 hours, and since it's only one day a week, people usually just listen in, and then I'll get other feedback on Facebook or Twitter. But usually people just kind of listen in. I've had people tell me before they just didn't want to interrupt me because they were either taking notes or just enjoying, what I had to say. So I miss the dialogue because I don't get that when I'm broadcasting, but it's still really good because people let me know that they heard it other ways.
So it's just you getting up there and doing the broadcast?
Yes.
Wow, and you're talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, I play a little bit of music. Generally, my audience will listen during the daytime. So while they're listening and they're at work, I'm talking about whatever topic. And as I break down the segments, we'll have a slight music break. And usually, I try to choose inspirational music that'll encourage, go along with. Interestingly, I've often found, without even trying to match it up, music that went right along with what I was saying. So thankfully, I only choose about 3 or 4 songs that usually works out well.
To balance out the talk.
Right.
Mecca, give me an example. What type of things have you spoken about recently that you got inspired about and tried to inspire others about?
As we prepare for the holidays, encouraging a lot of people. A lot of times people get to the point where they feel like that the holidays are somewhere where you have to be pressured to do this or do that because society has kind of created this platform that we all feel like that we have to follow. And so I've been talking to a lot of the people about being encouraged and being grateful for whatever it is that you may have before you, understanding that whatever it is that's going on in your life right now, it's exactly where you're supposed to be. I remember being a little girl and not experiencing and having the type of Christmases that I really thought that I wanted to have at the time. But later on in life, how things began to come together a lot more as far as me even being able to maintain my catering business, and I also do cakes and pies. I was always discouraged because I was living here and I was living there, and I would live with different family members, aunties and grandmothers. I really didn't understand it at the time because all I wanted was a traditional family like some of my friends had. But now as an adult, I see where the things that were dropped into my life at those different times, they actually had purpose for where I am right now. Me knowing how to cook and knowing how to prepare things and just really knowing how to manage a family. I understand that I walked away from my childhood with a lot of the things that I actually encourage and talk to the people and help the people through that I actually envied as a child. So I just encourage people to, as we get ready to approach the holidays, if you don't necessarily have all the money that you'd like to have, to do all the things you think that you'd like to be doing, then you definitely are giving you and your family some opportunities to spend some quality time together and to share with each other without all of the expensive gifts if you don't necessarily have that right now, and create other ways of making lasting memories. Some of the most successful people that I've ever talked to in my life always have some type of situation that they dealt with as a child. And they're actually the people that we look up to today that encourage us to keep pressing forward because they've weathered storms and they know what it's like to be in something and then be able to appreciate coming out of it later in life.
You know, Mecca, it occurs to me with regards to what you're saying that the expensive gifts at the holidays, the excitement is over in about 20 seconds. And you put the gift aside and maybe you use it for a couple of days. And I'm going to give away my age, but I remember getting an Atari video game set.
One.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had one.
Girl after my own heart. Yeah, and I remember I was all excited about it, and then a week later I was kind of done with it. But the things that I really remembered about the holidays were the time that I spent with my mom and my grandmother and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, and even the crazy annoying cousins were memorable. I like what you're saying. It's very inspirational.
Thank you.
What was involved in actually getting out there and doing this? Did you know how to do a internet radio show beforehand? When you were a little girl, did your grandmother say, now Mecca, when you grow up, you're going to do an internet radio show and this is how you do it?
No, I actually never had anybody say that to me. My first inspiration to do radio came from me working for a promoter. I worked on a temp assignment, and I was back-to-back to the supervisor that I used to work for. So she was in one cubicle, I was in the other, so she could hear me on the telephone. And so since she was into the promotions, and this company was one that brought a lot of the movies and the movie screenings to Dallas, she talked to me one day about if I was interested in radio because she said she could hear my voice and how I interacted with people over the telephone, and that she knew some people in radio, and she thought it would be a good fit for me. And I wasn't interested at the time because I didn't feel like that I was prepared for radio. I had some friends who were actually doing it and invited me to come on their show. When this friend of mine invited me to come on her show, she posted it on Facebook, and after she posted it on Facebook, I started to get comments of how taking a positive perspective on things, and a lot of times you'll find yourself standing alone because it's so much easier to assume the negative. People are feeling like they can deal with the negative instead of having the courage to believe for the positive. But it ended up working out well, and I started doing my own show.
I know you're skipping a whole bunch of things in there, so it was working out well, and then you started doing your own show. But don't you have to learn how to do the recording, and how do you pay for the airtime, and where is it hosted, and how do you broadcast it, and how did you handle all those logistics?
It's actually a very simple process. If you know how to operate a computer, because everything is so electronic these days, and so it's not like there was any complicated boards. What's so good about paying for your own airtime is that the studio is already set up for you, and the levels are already adjusted and tested, so you don't necessarily have to be responsible for that part. The production of your show and your topics and your music selections, those are all your choices, and so you have to be pretty good at choosing that if you're going to have a successful show. But for the most part, it's pretty much set up for you. You just go into the booth and you just talk. If you're comfortable with it, it takes a couple of hours to get comfortable, but if you're comfortable with it, people will respond to you by saying it sounds like that you are having a conversation. Because by it being online, people have the ability to listen on their phones or on their personal computers while they're sitting at work. So they usually have headphones in versus the traditional listening on the radio in the car. You know, they're usually somewhere stationary where they can really vibe with you and really just kind of sit in and just take in everything that you're saying. So I didn't have any formal training. I just went into the booth, and every time I go in, I just conduct myself like I'm talking to a friend.
That's exactly what people want to hear. They want to feel like they're sitting down in the living room with you and having a heart-to-heart as opposed to being lectured at from the podium. Mecca, how did you get the audience? Where did the audience come from?
A lot of the audience came from people that already were fans of the station. A lot of it I built up by making people aware of what I was doing via Facebook, social networks, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. Business cards, just passing it out, and then word of mouth. Because some people I know, but a lot of people I don't know. A lot of people are listening in other countries that have never reached out to me personally, but I can see them logging on to the Globe, and I was told by the production manager that a lot of times before I even arrive, I already have people logged on and waiting from all over the world. So it's been pretty interesting, and I just continue to go in and try to give people something that they'll walk away, you know, feeling better than they felt when they started listening. And people keep coming back, and it continues to grow.
If you were going to tell a friend how to set something like this up for themselves, where would they look for that kind of a station? And how much would they have to pay and that kind of thing?
It all depends on the stream and how many people you intend to podcast to. So I've never really set one up myself, but there is a website that you can go to that'll give you all of the instructions about setting up an internet radio station, because you can actually broadcast right from home, and then you wouldn't have to pay for any airtime. There is a program that you can download, and I think that just like with all the programs, the more stream and the more coverage that you get, the more expensive it's going to be. But generally, I think that the startup cost, from what I've read, can be around $250 to start up your own internet radio station.
Got it. I can tell you from the way that we do our podcast is that we have a WordPress blog, which is free, and we use a plugin called PowerPress, Blueberry PowerPress, which is also free, and that formats the MP3s for iTunes, for a podcast distribution. Then we sign up to iTunes, which is also free, and the only real expense we have, of course, is minimal amount for web hosting, just to host a website, to host the blog. We use a service called Amazon S3. Podcast files can be kind of large and they stream from a server, but it's pennies. If we spend $20 a month on reaching an audience of tens of thousands, it's really pennies. But there was a lot of technical know-how involved in doing that. So I think that what happened is you found a company that was willing to do this for you for a fee, and it sounds like it was probably worth it. So I think people can ask themselves, are they have more technical expertise and they want to tackle that mountain, or would they rather spend a little money and get that done for them? And either one is really a viable solution. You said that it wasn't necessarily making you rich. You haven't figured out how to make money from the broadcast yet?
Right. I was told once by someone that people don't mind paying for things of value, but they'll take it if you give it away. So I think that that's really where I am with it, even though I still remain optimistic even with that, because I truly believe that it was a gift, since I haven't had any formal training. And I just don't believe that gifts were just passed out just for fun. Certain measures or certain gifts to each individual as we travel through life and we begin to discover our purposes, that it'll come together, but you have to continue seeking. And in seeking that, that's what actually connected you and I.
That's true.
Because I was looking for ways. And in addition to that, of course, I would love to make money doing what it is that I do, because I know that there are people that make a living doing it, and I'd love to be able to do it all the time, because I actually don't feel exhausted when I'm helping people, and I don't wear out when people, I don't know if that day will come, but at this point in my life, I haven't gotten to a point where it bothers me to be able to help somebody else along. It actually refreshes me. It helps me to deal with the things in my life, because interestingly, a lot of times when people come and talk to me about things, as I begin to help them with the things that are going on in their life, it'll help me to answer some questions that I had about myself. I didn't even know was in me until somebody asked me about them. And then as I start to help them with what's going on with them, then I get some answers for some things I was looking for. But I would like to, because I know that a lot of times, you can run into, with us living our lives and people having a lot of negative experiences, a lot of times you'll find that people will really, really yield towards the negative. They don't really want to believe the positive. And so if you don't have any type of formal training or any type of certification, with some people will just believe it depending on what their beliefs are or what their history is with different situations. But you will run across those people that will be a little bit harder to crack as far as getting them to be turned around and seeing a positive perspective the way that they're dealing with. But if you could tell them that you've had some type of formal training or you've been certified in some way, I think that will help the people that are more like what I call the textbook people. The people that have to see it in writing.
Sure.
Have some form of backup or data.
Sure.
And so I want to be able to help them as well.
Thank you for the plug. You don't have to do that. But I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about some things that you talked about, and I think it would be helpful to you and probably helpful to the audience as well. Would you mind if I talk for a little bit?
No, go right ahead.
I've always been on a mission to share and spare myself as a marketer, and if you're on my list, you know that we give away a lot. We give away a tremendous amount of information for free because, what it comes down to, there's only a very small percentage of a newsletter list, an opt-in list, a podcast list that's ever going to buy anything. And I would like to have a bigger impact on the world than just the people who are willing to give me money. That's always worked out for me. It worked out for me before I really understood why, but as a marketer for the last 25 years or so, I've come to understand that what happens when you give away with your heart really valuable information, which is, the phrase I like to use is very useful but somewhat incomplete, is that people consume free information in a different way that they consume information that they paid for. when they're paying for information, they're paying a lot closer attention. They're looking for a step-by-step system. They're taking notes. They're looking for the specific action steps. They're printing out a binder. They're really making a plan to change their life with that action, hopefully. Much more so as a group than people who are consuming just the free information. And you really should be doing that with free information also, but people don't, because most of the people that are consuming the free information, they're not quite yet convinced that you're going to help them at the depth of level that you're really capable of. And it can take months or even years for them to come to that conclusion that you're really the guy or the gal to help them. Offering the free information distributed over time and kind of giving of your heart over that time, that's what makes it possible for them to come to that conclusion. But before they get there, they're consuming it in bits and pieces and they're not really putting together the big picture. There's always been a really clear line for me where my paid materials have always been really a system for accomplishing a major goal step by step with absolutely nothing left out. Whereas the free materials have been pieces and parts of really good, really useful information that can definitely help people with their lives. But if they start to pay attention, they're going to say, you know what, I really should work with this guy wholeheartedly. And taken as a whole, when you have the free, inspiring, helpful information given of your heart and for nothing else, and you have a step-by-step system to help people accomplish something specific in a specific period of time, towards a specific goal, that's a very, very powerful combination. And that's really what works in relationship marketing, in markets where people are moving towards something as opposed to moving away from something. And so what's missing for you in terms of being able to make money with your show, I don't know how large an audience you have. That might be part of it. But I think what might be missing is you need to have something very specific that you offer with a very specific and defined benefit in a very specific period of time. Maybe that is, I don't know, how to find 2 hours a week to meditate within 2 weeks of low-cost coaching sessions or your money back. Right? Or how to find the inspiration to get through the holidays with a concrete plan for each of your holiday parties in 4 weeks or your money back. Something like that. And if you really can then talk to them about how you're going to help them construct that plan and the steps you're going to take them through, it becomes much more tangible for them. And then if you're pricing it correctly, it really shouldn't be an issue to sell, because if you're giving so much, people are going to want to give back to you. You have to let them know how. You have to let them know how they should give back to you, because otherwise they think that the only thing you really want them to do is pay it forward. And I know you and I both have the kind of hearts that we do want people to pay it forward, but you know what? We don't live in a society where people drop off a chicken and a cake and a pie at our doorstep as a way of saying thank you for helping. We have to pay money for the mortgage and the electricity and all that, so we have to be paid too. Does it make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. Thank you. That's really been a big challenge with it. And also, I really love what you said, because I can definitely relate. A lot of times, if you know that you're using something, and a difference between a free trial versus a trial that you must pay for, or one that's going to be shorter versus longer. I know even from my own personal experiences, I've taken those things and I've just embraced it a lot more. Not that I didn't appreciate all of it, but it just seems like that those things that weren't so always just right there and people were able to just pick up on it and just take it whenever they wanted to. It's not so much that I have an issue with it being given away, but more so of people grasping and holding on to it and not just getting a good feeling for the moment and then just returning back to their doom and gloom, because then you haven't even paid it forward because they didn't take it anywhere.
Very interesting. That's a good point. Becky, the last thing I wanted to ask you about, you told me that on Mecca's Take, your internet radio show, and I'd like everybody to go look that up and download it and have a listen, that on Mecca's Take you make an effort to look for world events that are contributing a lot of negativity to society, and you try to find a way to turn that around. Did I understand that right?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Because you'll hear people, when there's some form of a hot topic, you will hear people saying things from the radio to every television, news, or whatever the case may be. And usually, you can get the vibe where I noticed that a lot of people don't ever take the time to put themselves in the other person's shoes. It seems like that as we go through our days, and everybody makes mistakes, and I know that I cannot be the only person that gets to the end of the day thinking, as I look over it or think about the things that I've done, wishing that maybe I could have done something a little different or possibly done it a little better. Meaning that we shouldn't necessarily just throw someone away because they made a mistake. some mistakes, they most definitely have to be dealt with, especially in cases where people have broken the law. But we have to make sure that we conduct ourselves in a place to where we appreciate the fact that we were made aware of something so that we can be some type of positive impact on that person or help that person along. Because there have been some people that have totally lost their mind or, unfortunately even taken their own lives because they didn't share. And they were so afraid of sharing that they didn't give themselves the opportunity to be helped. So I try to take situations where I see that it's just thriving and everybody seems to be so worked up about it. Currently, even I heard this morning a very controversial topic about Dr. Conrad Murray, who, was released from prison.
Michael Jackson.
Held responsible for Michael Jackson's life. And as you hear people talk about it, they really feel like that he doesn't deserve to be free and he deserves to lose his life. And everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But I just feel like, we shouldn't relieve every individual of their own responsibility for what it is that they do. So I try to make sure that I go in and interject, and that's actually what I'm going to talk to people about this week, because so many people are so hell-bent on having such an unforgiving heart, when if we don't ever forgive or we don't try to help people that may have made these heinous mistakes, then where have we come? What do we become as a people, as a society? Where do we get to the point where we can press forward and we can learn from these things if all we can say is, let's just kill and destroy everybody who does something that we don't agree with?
The fabric of society is built on the ability to repent and get a second chance, right?
That's right, because we're all given that opportunity every single day. Every single day we get it, and we've gotten it over the years. Now, everybody doesn't do the same thing, but what are you comparing it to? We have to stand back and say, am I comparing it to me and what I feel like is right? Am I comparing it to what it is that I say that I believe or what my church says is right or wrong? Or really, what we should be thinking about is how I would want this to be handled if that were me. How would I want somebody to view me if my very worst mistake was revealed? Would I want people to accept the fact that if I said that I realized that I made a mistake and I'd like to work toward making myself better and making changes to where I don't make that mistake again? Would I want somebody to give me that opportunity? Or would I want somebody to say, you will never have an opportunity to be better or do anything different in your life? And I think that everybody, if they were honest with themselves, they would know that you had your worst mistake displayed before the entire world. You wouldn't want the entire world hating you at one time.
Right. Somebody
has to stop and say, because you're still alive. You're still here. And my motto has always been, if you woke up this morning, it's not over. Because when it's over, you won't wake up anymore.
You must have done something right?
Well, you know what? Somebody says you deserve another chance because you woke up. When it's all over and you don't have an opportunity to make any positive changes or do anything different in your life, you don't have to wake up. There are more than enough people in the world that can do whatever it is that you were supposed to do today. There just was never an opportunity for you to ever turn around. And I know from my own personal, I've never, thank God, ever been involved in an accident or anything that cost somebody their life. But I have been in situations where I really, really wish I would have done something different. And I don't know where I would be today if there weren't people in my life that loved me enough to say, you know what, I understand that you made a mistake, and I understand that you really feel bad about it, and you really wish that you hadn't done it. But we have more people that are willing to go along with, and they don't really realize that by stoning a person for the mistake they made, you really have become just like them.
Whoever among us is without sin should cast the first stone, right?
That's right. And everybody dropped their stones and walked away.
Yeah. Well, see, now I feel inspired. Now I feel all smiley and inspired inside, so I can see where you do a good job at this. If people would like to get a hold of you, maybe they would like a little coaching on how to get their own radio show started, or maybe they just are looking for some inspirational coaching on their own or something like that, or maybe they just want to ask you a quick question. Are you open to that?
I am open to that.
And what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
They would like for their question to be shared among other people. I'm available on Facebook. Mecca Campbell is my personal Facebook. Miss Mecca's Take also has a Facebook fan page where I post show topics, and also you could go there and quickly have a link to the podcast. If you'd like to ask me something that's a little bit more private, you could send me an email at Mecca Campbell, MECCACAMPBELL @yahoo.com, and I'll do what I can to answer you.
Spell that one more time.
MECCACAMPBELL. So it's like Mecca like the city, Campbell like the soup, @yahoo.com.
You must be so tired of saying that.
You see, I've practiced that for years.
So like Dr. Livingston, I presume. Yeah, I've never heard that before. Never, ever, ever. You're the first one who ever said that to me. So, Mecca, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for your time and attention. If you'd like to find out more about taking your coaching to the next level, getting certified, and building the practice of your dreams, please visit becomearealcoach.com. 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 Thank you.